The city of Roswell. If everyone will take their seat, we'll call this meeting to order. I would like to invite Gail Bohannon to come forward and lead us in the pledge. If we all stand and face the flag. Gail, come on up. This is the second time this week I put you on the... No, that was last week I put you on the spot. Yeah. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will be calling on everyone who wants to speak tonight, but while Gail Bohannon is up, you're here tonight. Would you like to speak, Gail?
Sure.
You're up first.
Yes, to the Mayor and Council, on behalf of Groveway Community Group and the community of Roswell, and I say the black community which I represent, we would like to say thank you all for the excellent Black History Month program, Roots Festival we had this year. The attendance was awesome this year. Each year it grows and grows, and I have to say for Groveway's event this year, it wasn't on Super Bowl Sunday, so we had attendance of approximately 250 or more people there. So we look forward to not having it on Super Bowl Sunday again. And we want to thank Ms. Wynn for coming in, filling in for you on that day. And all the other events that I attended were well attended. And I have met so many people in Roswell that had never heard about it. I guess they don't read the newspaper or see the banners or anything like that, but it was really, really awesome. And a lot of hard work went into it, and we had an awesome committee this year that came in, had new ideas, and everybody was willing to work. So again, I say thank you, and we look forward to next year doing an even better job with not as many events, because it really works you.
Gail, have you got any of your committee members here tonight?
Yes, I would like
to recognize them?
Marie Epps, Willie Mae Crump, Janet Russell. Would y'all stand?
Please stand up.
And I don't see anybody else.
Good job.
Thank you.
On behalf of the city of Roswell, I want to thank all the committees, all the members of the Roots Committee. It does get better and bigger every year, and we look forward to continuing this. It brings life and warmth and brightness to an otherwise cold and dreary month. Who'd like to speak next? Yes, ma'am, if you'll come forward. If you've been here, I'm going to ask everyone who comes forward to give us their name and address. Gail Bohannon's family's been here for about 150 years, so I gave her a pass. But Janet,
I did
Russell,
submit
if you'll give us your name and address.
Thank you. I did submit a comment card.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. My name is Janet Russell, and I live at 260 Willow Springs Drive. I'm celebrating my 36th March in Georgia. I moved to Roswell in March of 1973. So while I don't have the longevity of Gail Bohannon's family, I think I've probably contributed a lot to justify my presence here. I'm also here to discuss the Black History Month celebration because I feel like there needs to be an assessment of the month that was just celebrated. As you know, I was on the committee, and I was a volunteer in the committee. I was invited to be on the committee to bring some new energy and ideas to the celebration because it had been going on for 7 years or 6 years, and they really hadn't increased the attendance very much. And oftentimes celebrations and events can stall out just because. So I feel like I'm eminently qualified to give an assessment, a real objective assessment of the month of events for several reasons. One, I was a volunteer and not an employee of the city, so therefore I didn't have to justify any of the events with numbers, inflated or otherwise. My job doesn't hinge on whether the events were successful or not, since I gave approximately 200 hours of unpaid professional time to organizing these events and contributing my energy and my passion for Black history. Many of the ideas that I brought to the table were used and many were not, which was fine. Just so you know where I come from, I was one of the 2 white volunteers on the committee. I served very honorably with the black members of the committee and the employees of the city. I'm the president of the Association for the Promotion of Tourism to Africa, and I'm the liaison to African embassies and African tourist offices for the United States. Last year, I was recognized by Kraft Nabisco as one of 100 extraordinary women in America changing lives for my work in Kenya. When I was invited to be on this committee last June, I took my invitation seriously to bring to the table new ideas. So during the summer, on my own time, I contacted the president of the Bank of America, the CEO of the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum, the president of Glory Foods, the National Geographic Genographic Project. I created a reading list of books for Black history, and I then volunteered to help with the jazz concert, the Children's Day, and bring the Kenyan choir to perform. I did all of this while I had a full-time job, and I was organizing the National Forum for Discover Africa, which also took place during Black History Month. It was rather ill-timed, on February 19th at the Civic Center. I also attempted to lead a common reader program with Dialogue, but unfortunately the brochure, of which there were 30,000 printed, the dates were wrong in the brochure. Well, why did I do this? Why did I give so much time to something like Black History Month? Well, a couple of years ago I said I had attended several of the events and noted that there was such a poor attendance, and I never criticize anything unless I feel I can be of help. I once had a woman criticize an event that I had planned, and she didn't like the food, and I said, "Great, you're a malcontent. That means you think you can do it better. I need you on my next committee." So I want to give you a few observations about the month that a lot of work went into. First of all, and these are very honest observations, remember I am not a paid professional of this city, but I am a professional, and I am regarded internationally for my work in Africa. I don't say that to make me sound really important, because I am not important. I just realize there's a world bigger than the one I live in. First of all, I think the name Roots is an outdated name, and I think it needs to be changed. It is a turnoff in today's environment. It fails to acknowledge the other roots of Roswell. The only thing missing from the Roots title is Kunta Kinte being held up in the sunrise. For those of you old enough to remember who Kunta Kinte was, it was back when Black Americans were first discovering the sense of history that they had. I must also remind everyone that February is officially Black History Month, not African American History Month. And that is why I was invited to bring in a more African connection to the events. So a schedule of events, as Gail just said, there were a lot of them. And I found for myself as a professional that it was more of a shotgun approach. There was no cohesive theme in these events. There was no thread running through all of them except that they had to do with black people. The calendar seemed to look like blackout bingo. How many of you on council or in this audience have played blackout bingo? You know where you got to cover the card to win? That's what the calendar looked like. Every day there had to be something going on because it made it look like it was really a happening thing. Static exhibits like the beautiful quilt exhibit that was at the Cultural Arts Center and the Negro Leagues baseball exhibit that was in City Hall were unavailable on the weekends because the public buildings are closed and locked. People complained to me about that personally. They said they drove over to see it and they couldn't get in and they weren't happy. Opening receptions, for example, the quilt exhibit was the one I attended at 6 o'clock. Generally cannot be attended by the general public because they're still on Georgia 400 and haven't gotten home yet. At that quilt exhibit, which was very interesting, and we met the two artists, there were approximately 30 people. Now remember, I don't have to inflate numbers and I don't have to take pictures of crowds that make it look like it was full. There were 30 people, and of those 30, approximately 5 were the general public. The remainder were committee members, Cultural Arts Board members, and visitors from Hammond's house. There was a reception for those 30 people. I would like it to become Roswell City policy that receptions are catered by caterers or restaurants that are in Roswell. I don't think it is a city policy, and I think it's an affront to the business people in this community because the city's always there asking for freebies. Can you donate this? Can you donate that? We're so poor, we can't afford this. But when it comes time to spending money, they go outside of the city limits to spend their money somewhere else. But I dare say they ask those caterers to donate their food. The committee met from September to January every 2 weeks on a Monday night at 6 p.m. The assistant who was hired to oversee the committee, while a very nice person, totally lacked managerial and leadership skills. She quit in December to go to Americus, Georgia to teach photography. We never knew what the budget was that we had to work within, and we had to finally demand it so that we knew what kind of money we were looking at to spend. As of today, I, as a committee member, maybe I've been excluded, have never seen a list of the line item expenditures and how the budget played out. With regards to events, I think the big event for the whole month was the jazz concert, which was held the first Saturday in February. We were very fortunate because Philip Carroll, whose father founded the Atlanta Jazz Party, has an address book of world-renowned jazz artists that's about this thick. And 6 of the best in the world came to perform in memory of Phil's dad, who happened to die after we had begun our meetings. The concert could have been held any time, not in Black History Month, and it would have been sold out. It was a blockbuster. I am sorry that none of you city council members were able to attend.
That's because it was sold out.
It was sold out, but I was advised from September when the concert was going to take place, and no one approached me to buy a ticket in advance. I guess they thought that it would not sell out, and therefore could walk up to the door and just pick up a ticket. But apparently, people don't understand that when I say I will sell out a concert 2 weeks before the event, I mean it. I don't pussyfoot around. I'm in business and I'm a pragmatist. A lot of people said that, oh my gosh, at the jazz concert everybody was white. Actually, they weren't. I counted the numbers of tables. Gail Bohannon brought some friends, and she sat at Sandra Mabry's table as guests. The other black members who attended were my friends. The Asian friends who attended were my friends, and the Latino friends who were there. So we had about 6 tables. The percentages of those people who were other than white reflect the percentages in the general population, so that criticism is unfounded. I sent weekly updates to every committee regarding ticket sales, and except for Gail Bohannon and Sandra Mabry and their guests, no other committee members purchased tickets in advance or attended. The Cultural Affairs Manager requested tickets after I had announced that it was sold out. I had promised to the committee that I would sure it would sell out 2 weeks prior, so why did anyone have to wait till the last minute? The second big event I was involved in was Children's Family Day. We called it Africa to America, the Ties That Bind. This was a very big success. Mayor Wood attended, and everyone was very happy to see him there, and I think he was a little surprised when he walked in to see it, the Teaching Museum, packed to the gills, with children and families of all ages and all races and all religions. I worked with Sandra Mabry, and I've never really worked with her before, and we managed to have a great synergy and create an exciting event that started with a South African storytelling DVD, where we had about 75 children sitting captivated listening. And then we had drummers from Burundi performing. And that was really what packed the house, were the drummers from Burundi, who are part of the Burundian refugee community that live in Clarkston. They were amazing. They took a little break, and about half, I would say more than half of the attendees then left. They weren't interested in the second half of the program, which was Joanna Maddox doing a portrayal of Mae Jemison, the first black woman astronaut. And finally, I lectured on Zanzibar in Western Kenya, where I had just spent a month. We planned it that way so that the younger children would be, interested at first, and then their energy levels would leave. But I guess my biggest question was, as I watched people leave, because we'd paid Joanna Maddox $400 to perform for an hour, why did they not stay? And it occurred to me that it was because they weren't interested. The people that stayed to hear me speak were adults. I didn't expect children to talk. I'd give a very academic talk on Eastern Africa. The adults would have stayed, but we had to vacate the Teaching Museum because of time constraints. We had wonderful cooking demonstration at Barrington Hall. Unfortunately, the times again in the brochure were incorrect, just like the dates of the reading program were incorrect. I went at 2 different times to meet the chef, who was absolutely delightful. Each time I encountered approximately 10 people in the kitchen. Half of them were her family, accompanied from South Carolina. I know that Willie Mae Crump brought some friends to meet him because I met them in the parking lot. But at no time did I see the kitchen overflowing with people. We had 2 competitions during this month, and one of them was the step dance competition that ARTRA organized because we were trying to get young people to participate in some of these events. Young people don't want to participate in much of anything. But I have to question, I didn't attend the event, I had something else to do. If there hadn't been a cash prize and free admission, how many people would have attended? 2 teams failed to show up for that. And so I ask that if, in fact, they do anything with a prize again, a cash prize, that there be a registration fee to participate to win the prize. We charge to go see Day is a Life of a Slave for $6, but they can come and win a prize for nothing. As far as the poetry slam goes, this is an outdated term and sounds a little bit too ghetto for me. The MC is paid $500 for 2 hours of work, and there are cash prizes. How many would attend if they had to pay admission and or a registration fee to participate? The Groveway presentation, this is the event that was the beginning of all these Roots celebrations, and thanks to Gail and her tenacity, it continues. But I think it would be fitting that it be continued, but organized by the Groveway community and Gail Bohannon. But I think it would be, these are all my personal observations, I think it would be better if it wasn't in the City Cultural Arts Building, but rather in one of the 2 churches that are in the Groveway community itself. When they first began the Roots celebration 7 years ago, those 2 churches did not have the beautiful facilities they have today. And that was then, and this is now. Times change, and so must festivals. There is no unwritten rule that something must go on for the sake of going on because there's nothing to replace it. Finally, the Unity concert. I happened to see Mr. DiPolito and his lovely family there. They sat behind me, and Mayor Wood was there. And the music was wonderful. 4 choirs. Very different music. I invited the Kenyan American Community Church Choir, who sang in Swahili, and I think everyone was flabbergasted at the beauty of their music. But I have to tell you that, except for the choirs who performed, the attendance was absolutely dismal. I added up the total membership of the Roswell United Methodist Church, whose choir beautifully performed, the Roswell Presbyterian Church, who failed to show, the Zion Missionary Baptist Church, and the Pleasant Hill Missionary Baptist Church, and their total membership is almost 10,000 people. Of that, 50 people showed up to listen to the concert. Of that 50, 25 were Kenyans who came to see their Kenyan choir perform, and they came the farthest. They also came to see their ambassador. The ambassador came from Washington, D.C. specifically for our concert as a favor to me. I was embarrassed. It was pouring rain, and his flight was an hour and a half late, and I met him at the airport, and I got him to the church. Protocol was not observed at any time. I was embarrassed. No one greeted us at the door of the church when we arrived. Someone should have been waiting there if it had been all night. I had to inquire where the reception was, and when I got to the reception, there was not one morsel of food left for a man who had left his office at noon in D.C. to get here to do us a favor by his presence. I had to scrounge a plastic glass and find some Sprite to serve to the ambassador of Kenya. He also serves as the ambassador to Colombia and to Mexico. He didn't say a thing, but clearly, when he saw that as the choirs got up to sing, there was nobody sitting behind him, he was not pleased, nor was I. I know that when these churches, and the music was beautiful, but I know when these churches like Roswell United Methodist or Roswell Presbyterian have a cause that they want supported, they can fill that church. That sanctuary is packed, because I've gone to things they've had where I paid an admission fee to hear a chamber music concert. Nobody showed up because nobody's interested anymore. So my question is, why are we spending time and money to continue these events? If people won't even go to hear their own choirs, why would you bother? Just to say we did it? In summary, I'd like to say the following. I think this festival has gone past its expiration date. It's gone past its sell-by date. It is no longer relevant. Many black Americans, and I call them that because there are black Africans, white Africans, and Arab Africans, and I deal with black Africans all day long. So I call them black Americans not as an insult because that's how I differentiate. Black Americans came up to me and said, "This is nice, but we don't think we should be celebrating black history." I said, "Really?" And they said, "No, it should just be part of American history." And so, as I said, as an observer who gave 200 hours of her time, I didn't just drop in. I worked my you-know-what off and gave 100% of my energy, knowledge, passion, and connections. I think that this month uses too much public money, too much of the city's employee time, and too much of the city's resources. This celebration has lost its relevance, and the apathetic lack of participation by the residents and non-residents of this city is proof. How many of you council members attended any of these events? And if you didn't, why would you expect anyone else to? I personally engaged with so many city employees of every race and color and religion and invited them to these events, and they never came. I have 3 black families that live on my street that I took one of those 30,000 brochures to and personally invited them, said I would take their children to the Africa Day. They weren't interested. People aren't interested, you can't make them drink. So what about next year? We've just heard, we should do it again. I think that the month should be observed by one signature event. I don't think we should be wasting our time and money on blackout bingo. I think it should be, in my opinion, a world-class jazz concert. Why a jazz concert? Jazz is the unique music art form gift to the world from America. It is the result of the African diaspora to America, the Caribbean, South and Central America. It is universal. You can go to Japan, you can go to Ecuador, and you can go to Nairobi, and you will hear American jazz. People contacted me for weeks after that jazz concert to tell me that it was the single best musical event or event they had ever experienced in 30 years they'd lived in Roswell. Random emails. Thank you. It was unbelievable. Now, I'm sure that my comments and observations will not be welcomed by some or even many tonight. But I know in my heart that it's time for the city to allow the black community to create, implement, fund, and attend these events. With an investment of time and money, then perhaps they will put a value on the celebration and show up. But right now, it's not happening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Russell. I want to thank you for the 200+ hours. I know that you and in anything you get involved in, you put your heart and soul into it. I appreciate that. I had heard the Jazz Festival was sold out and was a great success. Thank you for that. The Burundi drummers that I visited were a great program. The Kenyan choir that you brought here and the ambassador, it was wonderful having here. I apologize for the lack of protocol. I will tell you that this city is doesn't have experience with protocol, and I apologize if we did not treat the Kenyan ambassador as appropriate. I have no doubt that what you say is true, but we're learning. I'm going to accept all of your comments as constructive. I know that you support the community and you support diversity in Roswell, and that you would like to see this our programs all be a success. The Black History Month still has my support. I'm sure the council will be considering this as part of the budget process, and because we're looking at all of these expenses. But I do appreciate your coming tonight and giving us your thoughts. And we always listen to you. We don't always agree with you, but we always recognize that you are committed to and passionate about what you believe in, and we appreciate that.
Who would like to be next? Hard act to follow. Come forward.
Okay. Mr. Mayor and council members, Rich, how you doing? My name is James Hill, and I live in Roswell, and I want to talk about the coyote problem in the city of Roswell. And let me point out right up front that I do not have any affiliation with the Acme Do-It-Yourself Rocket Sled Company, but these are real coyotes. And somebody got that. Good, thank you. The knowledge about we've had knowledge about the coyote problem for years. The city council was aware of the problem in an article dated 4/10/08 that Roswell officials are interviewing professional coyote trappers, and their goal is to reduce the population of the unwanted invaders so they can't prey on people's pets and patients. And to quote David Tollison, at best you'll have a culling. And David Tollison, of course, the city councilman, you're not going to get rid of all of them. In Roswell, coyotes have established themselves in the large wooded tracts bordering the city's historic district. Some neighbors whose homes around the land, who are about the land, have heard coyote cries and yips for years, but say that the creatures are now actively stalking their pets. So, with the knowledge of the coyote problem increasing in the city of Roswell, though their numbers are unknown, coyotes are coming into contact more frequently with Georgians. The state's National Department of Resources official in Social Circle, which covers Metro Atlanta, received more than 2,000 complaints about the creatures last year. This according to Don McGowan, a senior wildlife biologist. And so it does seem to be increasing every year, he said. So we're aware of an increasing problem not only on the west side of Roswell, but also on the east side of the city. I've personally heard the howling of coyotes for months now. In fact, I've never heard coyotes until recently, and went online and heard some recordings of coyote calls and realized that what I had been hearing right at the edge of the woods at the house were coyotes. And have personally since then spotted a coyote in the backyard and actually by the North Point Mall. And both sightings were during the day between 4 and 6 p.m. And also just recently a coyote has killed one of our beloved pet cats. So the president of our subdivision has also seen a very large coyote by the Riverside Drive. And another resident has seen a coyote in her backyard. And all of these sightings are within mere yards of River Eves Elementary School and their playground. Now, I know coyotes are experts at jumping over, but especially digging under fences to get to their prey. And according to animal control experts, that in populated areas, coyotes can lose their fear of humans. Recent news reports of coyote attacks on human targets, one from Lake Arrowhead in California, where a coyote dragged a toddler from the front yard, and the animal released the 2-year-old girl when the mother appeared. And apparently they had, this was the third incident that had occurred out there in 5 days. Also, a coyote grabbed a 2-year-old girl by the head and tried to drag her from the front yard of her mountain home, in the third incident of coyote threatening a small child in Southern California. So dozens of attacks on children can be verified by doing a web search, but not only in California, but throughout the southeastern United States, as far north as Maine. And then reported just recently by CBS right here in Atlanta on February 18th, 2009. An upscale Atlanta neighborhood is on alert after a coyote killed a resident's dog. The coyote was spotted earlier this week in the Mount Perrin Road area in Buckhead. Coyotes have been seen in the area for years, and residents said Tuesday the area is heavily wooded, and residents believe that the destruction of the woods for new construction is causing the coyotes to act out. Parks and playgrounds have had to be closed down out of fear. In other articles, I mentioned that coyotes now feel safer in cities than on the open range. So the city of Roswell has been aware of this issue for years, and it's thinking about the issue, and we ask what can be done. The city council can make residents aware of the dangers. Many people not from Georgia, and even from Georgia, since coyotes are not native to Georgia, are surprised to find out that coyotes freely roam the city. So we feel that the city council of Roswell needs to try and get the state law changed to allow eradication of the dangerous wolf hybrid coyotes from our city in an effective manner, and in the meantime eliminate by whatever means are possible the dangerous coyotes that are killing our pets and putting our beloved children at risk.
Thank you for coming tonight. First, I would tell you that I'm not aware of any state law that prohibits trapping or elimination. You can stay up here because you may have some other questions. Okay. I'm not trying to get rid of you. I'm just trying to respond to you. I'm not aware of a state law that needs to be changed because I'm not aware of a state law. You got your hand up. Maybe you can tell me because I just asked my city attorney. We're going to call on Aaron next.
He said that there is a state law in the books that you can only trap a coyote in a cage and by
all right.
snare, and that the problem is the liability with the city of Roswell and city on this trap that someone's pets or their child might get in the cage by accident, and that by state law is the only way that anyone would trap a coyote.
Well, let's have Aaron get it straight from Aaron. Aaron is our resident expert on coyotes. We're very aware of the presence of coyotes in Roswell. It has come to council. We've discussed it at a couple of work sessions. And just so I'm not sure exactly where we left it, so I'm going to call upon Aaron to tell you first respond to the law question and then tell you what Roswell's current policy is, because Aaron has a better handle on it than I do of what we finally resolved.
First of all, Mayor and Council, good evening. Mariana and I did have a couple conversations earlier last week, actually late last week, with respect to the coyote population. That the state law issue arose in conversation with specific reference to the cost in the trapping program. There is inside the state law the ability for coyotes to be trapped in a quote-unquote humane manner. They have to be kept alive for a specific period of time and tested for rabies. And at that point in time, and I don't want to get too graphic here, but they are killed. There's a certain prescription in which they are killed, and there are certain things that have to happen with remains of the body. Or the carcass of the coyote. Ms. Long specifically requested if we were able to shoot them with tranquilizer guns and relocate them, or if that was a method in which we could begin to control the population, and the state law doesn't currently allow for that. So that was the specific reference to, from my recollection, and she may have something very different, and I certainly would welcome that comment, but that was my recollection. But as humanely as I guess killing something would be, that is correct. Correct. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Where we left the coyote program was several months ago. Staff was directed to develop a video, a brochure, put information on the website, and to develop a spot on RCTV. All of that was completed. The information has been available on the website for a number of months. We do have a brochure that was printed. It is available in the lobby, of course, of City Hall, and we're certainly responding to complaints as they happen. This complaint happens to be the second complaint that I have gotten over the past approximately 8 months.
Yes, please. We do keep a record of these meetings, and if you'll give us your name and address.
I'm Mariana Long, and I live at 1560 Misty River Run, Roswell, Georgia.
30076. My question was about the state law. Does it have to be a cage that the coyote has to be trapped in, or they can just be killed in a humane manner? Is that okay? So it doesn't have to be a cage where then the liability where a child might get into the cage, that's not going to come up?
Yeah, let me answer that real quick. It doesn't have to be a cage. It does have to be a mechanism, and primarily their leg traps, where if a coyote steps into it, their leg is bound. And the question arose with liability, specifically with reference to having to trap on private property. Of course, the city of Roswell doesn't own land in a bunch of neighborhoods, and so when we began to investigate a trapping or a population control program concurrent with state law, the issue for us was trapping animals on private property. That was a little bit of a challenge for us. So the traps are fully available for children and dogs and cats to get into. So again, from experience and trappers that we contacted, that did become a problem.
The experts that we talked to said the biggest problem is it's not practical to try to eliminate coyotes, because if you trap them, then they'll move from another area to sort of fill that void. And there was no practical way to eliminate the coyotes metro-wide. And so we really couldn't, the experts said trapping them is not a practical solution. It's a temporary solution, which it's a chronic problem with a temporary solution doesn't solve the problem. Their recommendation to us is to try to go to education, which you've talked about we need to do, and we're trying to make an effort of that. But as Janet Russell will tell you, some people just don't care and don't pay attention to what we put up. So we sympathize with your problem. My wife would every time she hears a coyote's outside of my house, I hear about it. Not from the coyotes, but I hear about it from my wife, and I wish there was something I could do to make her happy and to make you happy. But we really haven't found a practical solution to the problem that's cost effective.
Well, what I've read on the internet, though, is that since the coyote doesn't have any predators except a mountain lion, which obviously aren't in Georgia, that they feel comfortable, and especially comfortable in the subdivisions, and more comfortable than going out in the wild, so that they actually do hang around the city, and that an eradication program actually does work, and it does scare the coyotes. You might have to do it again in a couple of years, but it does work temporarily for a while. You just have to repeat it.
Well, the council considered all of these things, and the decision is that from what the information that came before this council, that's not what they heard, and we heard from a lot of different people, and it wasn't that the council didn't agree with your goal. It was they didn't see that it was a practical solution. I'm not saying that their minds couldn't be changed, but they've heard of this, and they really didn't see a way to have a solution, even short term, other than maybe a season or two. And there wasn't the public support to sort of create a citywide trapping program, which would be of substantial expense. Maybe, I hope the problem doesn't grow, but if we hear from more people like you, perhaps the council will take another look at it.
But also, coyotes aren't native to Georgia. They've just been here since the 70s, so obviously they were allowed to come in and stay here. So now that there's a real problem, initially a couple decades ago, probably
no
something
one
could have
is
been.
denying the problem.
Yeah.
We recognize the problem. It's the question about the possible solution that's debatable. And after hearing from a lot of different experts, this council said the best that we can do is an educational process. And if they talked about, what was the term, about the particularly problemsome coyotes? What did they call those? The bad actors. I don't think that's
more
the term
dangerous or something. Yeah, aggressive.
The aggressive coyotes. They said if they are particularly aggressive, you can trap them. But as far as trying to eliminate coyotes in the community, we were basically told by the experts we wouldn't be successful.
But what about the liability, since the coyotes that I've seen one right in my front yard, and my property abuts the elementary school. It's within yards.
The city is very concerned about liability in many ways, but the problem wasn't concern for safety. The problem was coming up with a practical solution that worked, and this council didn't find one. And we were told that trapping it wouldn't really work. Isn't that the gist of it, Aaron? What was the recommend? What did we hear? What did you hear?
Well, you're correct. Coyotes are family animals, believe it or not, and they traditionally occupy 7 square miles based upon food supply. So the theory behind the studies and the information that was presented to us was specifically that if you eradicate coyotes in one area, a new family will actually move into that area because they are territorial in existence. And that's why we've seen the spread from the western states to the eastern states, and then, as Ms. Long indicated, in the 70s they came to the southwest. So that's really the challenge. Is you can, as she mentioned, trap them and get rid of them, but that area will be reoccupied by another family in the future.
So it comes down to this: if this council sees more public support for trapping, perhaps they'll change the position. But after studying this, and Aaron spent a lot of time on this and became our resident expert. And after listening to all the best information available to this council, the decision was made. Education is the best thing the best thing that we could really do. And so I sympathize with you. I hear the coyotes. They're in my neighborhood too. We know they're all across Roswell, but we've just simply been told that trapping is not going to solve the problem for us. If it was, I think this council would have trapped it.
Well, what is the issue of what he just mentioned, that if you eradicate the coyotes, another family might move in, but of course that takes time, and like I said, then you might have to do it again in 2 to 3 years. Why couldn't it be a potential program that just continues versus allowing people to be put at risk, their children and their pets, with not doing anything?
This council could choose to do that. I'm just simply telling you, after the initial review, this council did not make the decision to do that because the best information available to them was it was not cost effective. If they hear from more people like you, perhaps they'll put more resources to the problem. But it's going to take a lot of resources, not just 1 year of trapping. It's really, if Roswell's going to be successful in this, I think it would take apparently. The best time to trap them, is it seasonal? Is it once a year or twice a year? April through. There's a season that you need to trap them. It would really need to be an annual program if we're going to be effective, and it would be costly. And this council has said they don't believe it's cost effective. But ultimately, it's the citizens. This is a very responsive council. I will tell you, this council responds to the public when they hear from them. And we didn't, the initial go around, we didn't see it, the council didn't see it would be that effective, and they heard from a lot of people, and they didn't see the commitment there to start trapping citywide on an annual basis. You couldn't do it in one neighborhood and be successful. It'd have to be citywide. So it's really a matter of priorities and what is the priority of this council. But if you have a lot of support, you might change this council's priority. That's where it is.
Okay, well, I'll try to get some more support and some more people up here.
And you might want to call the other. You have a kindred spirit. What is the other leader of the coyote control folks? Aaron would have her name. We're not going to give it out tonight, but if you'll
I don't remember
Aaron,
it off the top of my head, but I'd be
Aaron
happy to
can
provide it.
You can join forces with a kindred spirit who lives down behind Barrington Hall, behind Bullock Hall, and has concerns in her neighborhood too, and has had campaigns. So you're not alone.
Yeah.
You're just not in a overwhelming majority right now.
What about maybe a vote of some sort to see if citizens want to spend the money to actually do a program like this?
A potential, we could potentially have a referendum. But I'm just saying right now, the council looked at it, considered it very carefully, put a lot of staff time into it, and said they didn't believe at this time it'd be cost effective.
Okay. Well, I'd like you to revisit if you can. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Eichelhart, you have a comment.
I probably should just let this go, but don't want to encourage you to really spend too much time, frankly, trying to get a vote or other things, because you just can't eradicate them. That's the problem, that you can't eliminate them all. And even if we did, it would only be within our city limits, and then you've got all the things around us where people are going to come in. So it was more a concern of we have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars continually of something that's not going to work long term. So, the numbers of people, at least for me, are not the biggest determinant, because we all agree that we'd like to do something, and it's trying to figure out what that is. But spending hundreds of thousands on something that's just not going to work, from what we've been told over and over, is not likely to happen. So.
Yes, ma'am. Come forward. Yes, ma'am. I'll get to you next. Okay. This young lady in the back had her. I recognized her first. If you'll come forward and give us your name and address.
Hello. I do hope you'll forgive my appearance. We were going to walk, but my name is Deborah Swan, and I live at 800 Glen Royal Drive in the Horseshoe Bends, and I'm here to speak on and to pray that the Roswell board will continue with the Roswell Roots program, because I believe that I guess I'm just excited because my phone rang and my son just told me that I'm expecting another grandbaby. So I'm happy about that. So it really leads me into a nice segue in that's why we need Roswell Roots, is because it is our history. And as we learn this thing about how to get it right, I think it's important that we continuously be reminded that black history is an important and intricate part of America. I don't have a speech, but I do want to just speak from my heart just for a few minutes. And I also want to, in the beginning, give my tip my hat to Gail and the Grove Way for what they're doing for the Roswell Roots program, because I think she's a driving energy in making this happen. But again, as I learn Georgia and learn how to make this work, I think we shouldn't just crash or not support the program. Because if we be honest, how many of us has actually been on Wall Street, and there's our tax dollars spent there? How many of us have actually benefited directly from I could go on, but I pray that you hear my heart and know that the monies are well spent in continuing to support the program. I want to speak about the STEP competition, which was at Pleasant Hill Missionary Baptist Church, which I'm a member, but not speaking in behalf of. But it was a great program, and the youth came out and they stepped, and it was a fun time. And I think the only thing that's missing from the program is you got to really learn and talk and listen to the black community for it to really work, because we know how to make it work. But I pray that you'll just listen to us more to help make it work. Because I guess, I don't know, what I was on a committee 1 year. I have very little tolerance for this stuff. I'm sorry, for the political stuff. But I do vote. So, that way I thought that my dress was not important enough for me to get dressed up to encourage you. But I will say that I do vote. And I will vote. And I think I voted for practically everybody here. Yeah. Yeah, I did. I do vote. You can check my record. Well, yeah, I voted. I love you in your gym shoes. I mean, they're right on time. And get a chicken man a break while I'm here. But But then if we're going to consider in funding a program, and my head goes off to the coyotes. I don't know. We deal with things differently in our community, but like the guy from the war said, just run over them. But no, that's not the political thing to do. But but I think before you really consider funding programs. Continue to fund the Roots program. I'm not surprised. I didn't make it to the Unity concert because my husband was flying in that day, and the rain. It was raining like crazy. But we really in this country just beginning to learn and to really respect Black people. So I'm not surprised that the ambassadors from Kenya didn't receive red carpet. We haven't ever. We're just getting to that part. I've been to Zimbabwe, and I love Black people. You know why? What reason? No, because I'm Black, but no pun intended. But I really think that you guys should take your hats off for a month of activities. I didn't make them all, and we're not going to ever make them all. But I'm sure that more people will begin to make more of them. But the dates were wrong this year, and that threw and discouraged a lot of people. That I would say, make sure that the dates are right. And I guess my main thing with the Roswell Roots is, I guess that first year, well, anyway, let me just say this is along with giving us Roswell Roots, give us some of the economic benefits. Let's look for Black printers and Black business persons to actually, begin to gain some of the benefits of Black History Month, and really talk and listen to us more to help make this work. Because I'm new to Georgia. I've just been here 10 years, and so to me, I'm really new. And so, my tolerance level is really, really low because I'm from Indiana, right outside of Chicago. And so we just, it's like, I love coyotes. I think I came to a couple of board meetings and we were talking about mailboxes for like 2 hours and because the feet from the curb and stuff. And Roswell was really blessed and the issues that you're dealing with. But when you leave a community that you're dealing with drugs and violence and other issues, coyotes began to be, no slight, no pun intended, seriously. But, whatever is important to us, that becomes our issue. And Black History Month and Roots program is important to me. And I didn't make them all, but I really take pride in knowing that at least Roswell is really giving something back to the Black community. We don't always do what we want to do. We don't always do what we need to do in God's world. We all fall short. And we're all learning this thing. So before you just X the funding for Black History Month, consider a consultant. I guess it's my favorite. I can name a number of people that will be a great consultant for Roots Black History Program. Her name is Bobby Lisser, and she's great at marketing, and she does some great things, and just try to do some things differently before you just try to X the program. Because, again, it's our tax dollars. And our tax dollars fund so many programs that's not working in this country. So definitely don't weigh because of the attendance as a reason to just cancel the program. And I had one more point. It's on my sheet someplace. Let's see. Oh, don't look at the Roswell Roots as just political grandstanding. I do pray that you don't look at it that way. That you really look at it that if one person learns something about Black history, or two, for that month, it's well worth it. It's clearly well worth it when you look at the budget, and that's just a little bit of money that we're spending just to teach the children, or just to offer an opportunity to learn about it. Because we don't do things right all the time. But I guarantee, no, I ain't going to guarantee you. But I do believe that if we just give it a little bit more time, just a little bit more time, and work it and tweak it just right, that it could work. And I love roots. I love the word roots. because that's what it is. Because it's, we got to dig a little bit deeper because that's really what it is. But you just got to get the dates right on the brochure. Because if you go to one event, the date is wrong, that's it. Especially for our community. If it's raining, that's it. Now most of y'all come out in the rain, but it's. Let's be honest. But I'm not going to say I put in any time with Roswell Roots or even enough with Grove Way. I do. I don't. But I'm gonna do better, Gail. I'm gonna do better. But I do believe in the program, and I do where I can in the area I am. I'm just not sitting at home. But I really do believe in the program, and I do pray that the Roswell, my mayor, my council, would just consider and to, don't take nothing away from it, add to it. Put more money to it, in it. And just keep this program alive. Okay. Any questions? No, I don't mean to be fun, but really seriously, just keep the program and get a chicken man a little slack, but.
I appreciate you coming tonight. I don't think anyone here is talking about eliminating the program. I think Janet Russell would be the last person here in this room to advocate getting rid of all programs. She's made a lot of suggestions. She's honest about the suggestions. She believes they would make this program better. I think it's up to the committee to consider this and all other efforts. And I know this committee every year tries to make it a better event. I think we learn from our mistakes. I think we'll get better every year. But I don't think this council is talking about eliminating all funding and eliminating the level of funding. It's not tonight. It'll be part of the budget process. And if Janet Russell worked harder for this program than anybody that I know of this year, and I'm sure she'll continue to support it, I think she's just saying we can do a better job of making this a better program, and she's got her own idea. And if Janet Russell, if we accepted 100% of Janet Russell's idea, she'd probably pay for supply.
But
Jump up and say thank you finally after 36 years for showing some common sense.
But again, but. And I do want to thank you for this opportunity that you have for citizens to come before you. And again, these are just my personal observations, and I do pray that the council will considering increasing the funding versus just looking at it, but look at it from the motivational part to increase the funding for the program.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Who else would like to be heard tonight? Yes, ma'am. Come forward.
My name is Eileen Seidman, and I live at 330 Shady River Trace in Roswell. And I'm here to talk about communication with the city. And I think that the seriousness of the problems with the coyotes could be helped if we had a little better communication. We now have 2 newspapers in the city that we have to pay in order to receive them, and we all know that that's not going to cover a large area. Mayor, you and I have talked about the fact that the homeowners list that we have had in Roswell is not up to date, and I'm hoping that perhaps that you could find or in some way to bring it up to date where it would be possible in the case of any kind of emergency, notifying somebody about some problems, that it could go out with an instant push of a button to the community or to the officers of the associations, where they could pass it on to the people that live in their community, and I don't believe we have that right now. We also could use, and I don't know exactly how you do it, but we all get trash bills on a regular basis, and I think that if it's possible, if there's something like Black History Month or something else going on that's important, it could be tacked onto the body of that bill as a reminder that such and such is happening, because I think in East Roswell, we have the East Roswell Coalition, which advises us of a lot of important things happening in our community. And of course, I would not want this used for any kind of political information, but basically let people know type of thing. And I hope we can work that out, because I don't think our communication is really as good as it possibly could be. Thank you.
Legislature's laws, any information that we have available in the city is available under Open Records Act unless specifically protected by the state legislature, and they haven't chosen to protect lists of names. That we cannot have a list which is not available in the city law. So I appreciate the comments, and
Thank you, Mayor.
yes, sir. This is you.
Mayor and Council, I just have a couple of quick comments telling you how much my name is Emery Murphy. I'm one of those old 30-year residents of the Roswell area. I'm also a private investigator and travel pretty much throughout the state. So I get to see a lot of different municipal courts, state courts, federal courts, and police departments. And I just wanted to come in tonight and tell you how much those of us who know the community appreciate what the chief here has done to our police department. I've had numerous dealings with them on different things, that they're very professional. And believe you me, when you travel to other jurisdictions, other cities, you don't see that. So we're very fortunate. Same way with our court system, with Maurice Hoodyard and Mr. Barwick and our solicitors and all their staff. They're absolutely fantastic to work with. Extremely, I've seen them handle things very, very professionally. And one other quick comment, and I'm not sure what category it comes under, but we've had a problem in my neighborhood with signage, speed signage. And I did call to the city, got transferred to a couple of departments. I'm not really sure where I ended up. But the young man that I chatted with told me that he would look into it, and within 3 days he would get back to me. And I left a message. He returned the call immediately. 3 days later, we had speed signs throughout our neighborhood, something we had in umpteen years. So I just want to tell you, we do have a great staff, and I hope that the council and the all appreciate some of the people that we do have here on staff in Roswell. All the dealings with the administrative staff here have been extremely good. When we go in for license or taxes, it's just a totally different atmosphere from a lot of other jurisdictions. I have several properties outside the state with the coyotes on my farm and different things, but we do differently down there. But I just want to let you know how much a lot of the citizens do appreciate what we do have here in Roswell, and the staff that we have, and the council that we have, and appreciate no more of this crossings that we've had in the past. So it's been good. And one other quick note, I'm not sure how all of the information comes out, but in my neighborhood, we do get, through the HOA, a lot of information coming through the city. So there is a program coming out of staff here, and we do get it in our neighborhood. It keeps us pretty much updated what's going on. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. I appreciate your compliments to our staff. We appreciate what a good staff we have, but it's always good to hear it from the citizens, and our staff appreciates those compliments. Regarding communications with the citizens, we do have a email that comes out from the city. It's voluntary for people who want to sign up for it. And how would they sign up for that, Julie?
They can do it on the website.
If they go to our website and they want to get periodic updates from the city as they come out, that's an official communication from the city of Roswell. And we'd love to have that 10 times its size. We've got about 1,000 people on that. And but I appreciate all those compliments. Yes, sir, if you'll come forward.
Ms. Kay, Mr. Mayor, members of council, Ms. Russell, and citizens of Roswell. My name is Sam Evans. I live at 150 Chafin Road. It's off of Crabapple Road. When I arrived tonight, the reason I come here tonight was I had a bag full of accolades. And then all of a sudden I'm sitting back there and I'm looking at the dais up here. And something doesn't look right to me. Here it is, the people's meeting. And I see 3 city council people up here. Mr. Mayor, what happened to the other 3?
They have excused absences tonight. I know Councilman Orleans had something with the family that was important. And Mr. Tollison is traveling out of town with on behalf of his business, because all of these council members are part-time and can't make all of the meetings. So they all have good reasons not to be here. They're all expressed their disappointment they couldn't make it.
We miss them. And I hope the citizens of Roswell noticed that only 3 out of the 6 showed up. In the old days, I used to want to get copies of what went on at the open mics. And they tell me y'all don't keep minutes on open mics.
No, sir, we do keep an outline of
outlines. All right, sir. Well, I hope the 3 council people that are here will encourage the other 3 that are not here to read the outline. And so much for the vinegar. Now, the accolades. Ms. Kay, I give you accolades for bringing Colonel Steve Ossenbeck back to the city of Roswell. He's a professional engineer, a graduate of the Citadel, served his country for 20 years as an engineer, as an officer of engineers, and Colonel Ossenbeck and I both went to the Citadel, so I know the kind of education he got. He received at the Citadel. And Ms. Kay, don't let this one get away from us. Transportation has had so many people in and out, like the revolving door. But this man is good. And Steve Ossenbeck was Stu Morin, another professional engineer. We got the best in Roswell. And all of y'all are be commended, and I hope you support these engineers. And that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Evans, and thank you for your brevity.
Oh, one other thing.
I spoke too soon.
But this is a little bit of history. As we walked in, we're giving the Pledge of Allegiance. All of y'all know it, and the mayor knows where it started.
I will give Sam Evans full credit.
Right.
For the city of Roswell,
I fought with this city council for months and months and months about having the Pledge of Allegiance. I got nowhere. I don't think any of y'all were on the city council. Finally, I wrote a letter and threatening to bring the American Legion Post 201 in here, and all of a sudden the walls of Jericho come down.
I don't remember that letter. I do remember your request.
Jerry Wood opened that meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, and he gave me the honor of during the first Pledge of Allegiance. But then I had to go and look up the words because I was not sure I knew them. But that's why we have a Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. You're correct. Who else would like to speak tonight? Yes, sir. Come forward, please.
Lee Fleck, Martin's Landing.
first thing, so you all understand why I'm here primarily because Mr. Love assured me some figures will be available to me tonight and an explanation. First thing I want to say for all your information, House Bill 2 will be up for vote this week. Basic, what if it passes, it will require recipients of LARPS funds to submit in writing to DOT that they're compliant with both E-Verify and the SAVE program. I think you've made significant strides in positioning yourself so as not to be jeopardized with that possibility. Not to say that the Georgia Municipal Association isn't fighting this tooth and nail along with Senate Bill 20, but it should be interesting what transpires this week. I want to touch on some budgetary items. First, and I hope this thing is working. If not, you're going to have to focus for me. Just some comments from last Monday's workshop. And you can't see much. But at any rate, you'll have to help me here. One of the things that I'd like to say is that when economic times are good, how you present your budget and the preparations of it aren't nearly as important as they are when economic times are a little harder as they are now. The point that I want to make here is that all your figures that were presented by Mr. Irwin, and this is probably how you've handled it in the past, and that's why I'm saying you've got to be a lot more conservative on how you look at this, and you have to understand what you're seeing. Basically what has happened is you're seeing the projected 2010 budget numbers proposed versus the proposed 2009 budget numbers. Okay? And the variances that you see there are versus projected 10 versus projected 9. The reality is last month you voted for an amended 2009 so that if you do not realize when you hear all these favorable variances that you're really getting twice the yardage with the exact same play by incorporating figures, favorable figures, in the 2010 budget that you've already considered in the amended 2009 budget, you're not looking at this very pragmatically. I hope you understand what I mean by that. Okay? So everything you see, you must notice when you look at these, that these figures are versus projected 2009 figures. So when you go to the favorable variances of, say, $500,000 in budget vacancies, those are the same favorable variances that were written up in the newspaper a month ago before you voted for the amendment. That's what I'm talking about, getting politically twice the yardage for the same play. Please realize that as you continue your budget process. Now, what I'm here to talk about specifically is the Special Events Fund, which you know I have discussed on several occasions before. My first comment is this fund is not very transparent. It's actually hidden in the supplies cost center of your budget. The originally $75,000 and now $50,000 is actually in your supplies cost center. When I get to the Parks and Recreation budget, Fund 555, it's literally impossible for someone who does not know where these numbers are coming from to find them. So I wish that you would be more transparent when you present these numbers as to where they are. This week, I obtained, through public records request, the Special Events Fund, which I have titled the Mayor's Slush Fund. You've heard me say that before, for special events. And I want you to notice the date on this. This is 3 days after the meeting when all the bicyclists were here, and they were advised that there were insufficient funds in that budget or in that fund. As a matter of fact, they were told there was only $18,000 left, and so this council approved using $12,000 out of operating funds to satisfy the needs of the bicyclists. Well, I want you to show you the actual balance in that budget as of 2 days after the meeting. There's a balance of $30,000. Now, these numbers are disconcerting, and I think this council should be concerned that what they were advised does not appear to be the true picture of that account balance. Now, I can speculate, but I'm not going to speculate as to why. But if you knew you were going to have a meeting with all those bicyclists here, we should have had a little better grasp of the actual money in that fund. The entire purpose of that fund, as stated during the budget process last year, was to properly track special events funding. What I just showed you is pretty much evidence that that attempt to track has been unsuccessful, and therefore I do not see where it's justified to continue in the future. Now, the specific information that I wanted clarification of from Mrs. Love was this fund, which is the cost center 6150, which is out of Fund 55, the Parks and Recreation budget. And for fiscal year 2009, there was $80,000. I'm sorry. There's $80,000 in this fund, which was an increase from the fiscal year 2007 to 2008 of nearly $30,000. And those funds have been spelled out definitively to be used to conduct the annual bike criterion. So again, I don't understand why we took funds out of operation when you had additional funds here, and Mrs. Love was going to assure me that there was a balance in this fund also. So I'm puzzled. I would really like an explanation before I go any further as to do we actually follow a budget?
The answer would be yes.
Do we pay attention to? How can you say that, sir, when I'm showing you figures right here? That,
well, you asked me what did we follow the budget. I thought you would want a simple yes/no answer, so the answer is yes.
No, I was assured that I would know exactly the balance in this account tonight.
What other questions have you got? I want to try to get all the questions on the table so we can get them all. I don't want to interrupt you. I want you to have the full floor to get all your questions out on the table, and I'll try to go down and answer them. Try to get staff to answer them.
We'll do that. I'll want to know that if you don't have a hard copy of that information for me tonight, I'll make a public records request, and you can anticipate that. The next issue that I want to talk about is a budgetary issue that's been one of my favorite for some time. In that same meeting that you had with all the cyclists here, this council approved the chief of police to submit a request through the Recovery Stimulus Act to obtain 10 additional officers. And of course, there is the requirement for equipment, which you had committed to use from confiscated funds. The COPS program, as you well know, is a 3-year program that the city would have to absorb the cost after the first 3 years. However, the metrics for the program, which I have here, specifically focus more towards municipalities where jobs have been eliminated. And so the first 2 priorities will be toward funding those municipalities that have lost police officers due to economic cutbacks, i.e. like the city of Atlanta. Before you get down to the potential for job creation. And I hope that you all recognize that reality, that the chief's desire to obtain officers through this method might well not materialize. And so if you deem, as you did by approving that, the necessity for additional police officers to redress the increase in crime, then I would hope that you would consider the possibility of at least adding some police officers in the first year of the budget, okay, under the presumption you may not get any at all in this new program, or if there's any time delay. I think that you need to recognize that possibility and not assume and bank on officers from a government stimulus program. Now, I want to talk about a subject that I think needs to be redressed. Right now, this is what's on the police department website. This is the only current figures available on the Roswell Police Department website that date back to 2005 and 2006. Now, my personal opinion, and it's my personal opinion, and you know what they're like, everybody's got one, okay, is that by not producing and putting these figures up for the public to see, you're actually hiding the crime stats in this city. You're in a budget period right now, and I believe, Mrs. Henry, you're the one quoted in the newspaper saying that it's an obligation of our elected officials to know the facts. Therefore, since you have recognized the fact that you want an additional 10 police officers, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I bet you if I asked you what the crime stats were for last year, you couldn't tell me any of them. You couldn't tell me that the Class 1 crimes increased 3% last year. Okay, you couldn't tell me that the crime index had the second largest increase in the last 9 years last year. And you couldn't tell me that the one single item in all the crime stats that declined significantly last year by 5,000 were traffic stops because officers were told to park their cars when the price of gas was so high. At any rate, the reason that we don't have more current figures is because supposedly the software that generates this is corrupt. Now, this is out of a department that has the largest portion of the budget in the city. And we can't get current figures. The only way I could get current figures for 2006 and 7 was to ask for them. I hope you include funding to get the software package to present the statistics, which are the yardstick of how effective our police department is, are available to the public to see. This would be like a manufacturing plant not keeping statistics on how many cases they produced. That's all I have to say this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll try to answer your questions. You may have a seat.
Pardon?
You may have a seat.
I can have a seat.
Yes,
okay.
sir.
So will I be able to, if I don't understand your questions, will I be able to ask additional questions?
About the specific thing, if you have additional subjects, I'd like to
No.
hear them all.
I'm talking about, I may not understand what you're telling me about the funding on the money on these funds, and I'd like the opportunity to have it clarified.
I will give you the opportunity to ask questions if you don't understand what was being presented in response to your questions. Mrs. Love, on the $30,000 in the fund after the bicycle meeting, do you want to explain, answer the point he raised on the $30,000 in the special events fund?
Yes, sir. The printout that you have is what is in the general ledger as of that date for the events that have been completed and all of the expenditures posted. So there are events. The amount of money that was discussed the night the mayor and council talked about the budget amendment or necessity for additional funding for the criterion was predicated on all the events that have been submitted, and some of them have yet to occur. Therefore, we can't post the information until it has occurred. There, if you saw at the bottom, there's 0 encumbrances. We don't have anything out there as a placeholder in the system because that's the general ledger. We have another spreadsheet that we use as an ongoing tally that we provide to the mayor and council as they approve events, so that they don't approve events that we don't have funding for. Thus the reason for us bringing that for the council's action. So that information is accurate for what has occurred and has been posted. So sometimes it might have been the way the question was asked and we didn't understand what you were trying to compare it to. You and I did have a conversation on the phone, and I explained to you how that additional funding would work and the purpose of the special events fund, that it is a ancillary fund and a memo entry because of the expenditures are occurring in the specific departments, and then we are tallying those up or consolidating them to account for the entire event.
I think the second question had to do with a $80,000 special events fund and recreation. Would you explain the difference between that?
Yes, sir.
The recreation special events fund and the cultural affairs special events fund.
The $50,000 special events funding is in the general fund of the city's budget. The cost center that Mr. Fleck had on the overhead is $6190, and that cost center resides in the Rec Participant Fund, which is an enterprise fund that accounts for the revenues and expenditures associated for the specific programs sponsored by the City of Roswell Recreation and Parks Department, for which participants pay a fee. So that is a completely and separate budget, doesn't have anything to do with the general fund. However, sometimes there are events that the city sponsors, the criterion is one of them, whereby there are some small expenditures such as supplies that may be purchased out of that account. The majority of the expenses of the criterion are for staff overtime, and in the past we have tried to cut down the amount of overtime that we have spent by coordinating schedules and working people flex time and working part-timers who aren't entitled to overtime for their schedule for that week. Thus, that was the way we reduced the budget for this year. So when the department talks about what they expect to accomplish, that actually transcends more than one fund. So the entire criterion participation for Rec and Parks was not paid for out of the Rec Participant Fund. It was coupled with the general fund amount, as you and I discussed on the telephone. And that is quite confusing. It's requirements of GAAP that we have to account for it in that way because that is an enterprise fund.
Chief Williams, I've got some questions for you if you'll come to the microphone. Chief Williams, how long have you been police chief of the city of Roswell?
15 years.
Have you ever been asked by the administration or the council to park cars because they don't want to pay for the gas?
No, sir.
How current are our crime statistics?
They are current, sir. I'm afraid he was looking at the wrong part of the website. And if you'll look here, I just pulled it up, and that's get where you can see the website there, sir, so you can get exactly where it is. It's just down the page from where you were. You were here at an old annual report. We don't do this report anymore. We combine with the city's annual report. It saves money. That probably does need to come off. That's an old annual report. And, of course, there's the front of the police website. And you can see at the bottom where it talks about the crime statistics 2008. So that's where you can find the current crime stats.
How do the crime statistics for 2008 compare to prior years?
It's, pull it back up for you right quick. And you can see that violent crime is down, and property crimes.
When you say down, so we're having less violent crime per capita
yes, sir,
than in the previous year.
And that's a very small amount. The violent crimes are down by 12 fewer this year, or rather 2008 than were 2007, and the property crimes did increase by roughly 169 actually.
Where did most of those property crimes come from?
They occur in the what I call the Beach 7. It's the Holcomb Bridge Road, Alpharetta Highway corridor.
What percentage of those would be car break-ins?
A huge number. And this right here didn't break it out. That's a good question. I'd have some crime stats over in my briefcase.
But we're experiencing a lot more car break-ins.
Car break-ins and what the kids are calling garage shopping, which actually gets reported as a burglary, but they're going around the garages and getting beer out of it. So a lot of those burglaries are at that level as opposed to someone's whole house being cleaned out. But those do occur, of course.
In your experience, when there is an economic downturn, do you see an upturn in property crimes?
Across the board.
So this
in
is
35 years of law enforcement, it happens every time.
The way the real world is.
I'm afraid so.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Fleck, was there anything that you didn't understand?
I certainly do have the breakout of all that budget, and as you can see, 09 through December 08, the $19,000 it does reflect there. So I do see where it's all broken out, okay? And so when you say that the report 2 days after the last meeting was not current, how did you come up and say in that meeting there was only $18,000 left? I don't understand how you could make that statement.
Because what you're looking at, the prior information that you had is actually the general ledger of what has been occurred. The 18,000 predicates events that have not occurred. For example, Convoy of Hope that will be happening in mid-April is an event that the mayor and council have approved for co-sponsorship with an amount of money that will come out of that $50,000. So we have to account for that. We do that on an Excel spreadsheet as a placeholder with the estimated cost. Once the event occurs, we come in and shore up the accounting for the actual expenditures, and that's what gets posted to that first sheet that you put up, which is the general ledger. So
I certainly can appreciate that. Okay, I can appreciate you have a running total going.
The numbers were correct that were presented. The 18,000 is a correct and accurate number based on estimates for the events that have not occurred and actuals for those that have.
You knew that I had made that request. You told me that I had made that request.
Mr. Fleck, I have the floor. If you have a question, ask your question. I'm not here for an argument. You said if there was something you didn't understand in the answers, I'd try to explain them to me. So this is not the time for new questions. It's not the time for an argument. If you have a question, state your question.
Ms. Love, in our conversation, you indicated that you knew that I was making a request for this information.
Mr. Fleck, that is not a question. That is a statement. Let's see if you can phrase that in the form of a question.
Let me lead into that, sir. Okay?
I'm not asking for leading questions. I'm asking for questions.
If you have a question,
No,
state
you're
your
pulling
question.
me again like you normally try to do.
No, sir, I'm asking, the rules of the game were if you have a question, ask your question. This is not the opportunity for a statement. It's the opportunity for a question. You've had your opportunity for statements already.
As a continuance of what I just said, why then didn't you give me that information since you knew that I had asked for it? Why didn't you explain to me that you had additional encumbrances for April when that information was sent to me showing a balance of $30,000?
I did not see what was sent to you. The Open Records request was not processed by me personally. When you and I were on the phone, I did explain that. I explained to you that in the committee information when the mayor and council approved, because they approved the events, event by event. So when they get that, they get the tally sheet that shows what they've approved thus far and what has actually happened. So I don't know what your request was. I didn't read the questions on the Open Records request, but when you and I spoke, you told me you had submitted it. I had seen the cover sheet of the facts come in. I did not process it. That was processed in ComDev. The sheet that you were given was the balance at that time of what had been posted. I can get that for you. It doesn't change the numbers that were presented. It's the same numbers. The other sheet with the other events that have been posted are a matter of public record and have been out there in the minutes of any of the committee meetings, or if they had to come to the council for approval, are out there. So that information is available in a variety of formats. What I didn't get for you, and I apologize, was you asked me for last year's criterion numbers.
Yes, ma'am, I did.
And you asked me to get that, and I told you I would, and I have requested. I have not followed back up. You did not do it under Open Records, and you don't need to. You don't have to do that. You asked me on the phone, and I will honor that. I apologize for the delay, and we will get that to you tomorrow. So if you want to send Open Records, be my guest, but it's not a requirement. I'm happy to get that, and I apologize for not having that tonight for you.
Thank you. Now, I do have the crime stats that the chief was referring to, and I think it's pretty simple when you look at these two figures right here. And these are Part 1 crimes. If you do that calculation, that's an increase of 3.1%, as I definitely stated. And down here, as far as your traffic stops, you've gone from 39,000 to 34,000. That is the only significant decrease in crime incidents, or whatever you want to call it, in the entire 2008 statistical presentation. So what I said was accurate.
Does anyone else have any questions or statements they'd like to make? Thank you for coming tonight. We're adjourned.